Welcome to Let's Talk EI, Emotional Intelligence. Today's episode is Men Cry Too, the emotional well-being of men. Joining me today as my co-host is Mrs. Jacqueline A. Hines. Welcome, Jacqueline.
Thank you, Miss Law, and welcome everyone. Yes, today's session is Men Cry Too, the emotional well-being of men. Okay, so without further ado, I saw this quote and I thought, you know something, it is so appropriate to the time and space that we're in right now. Dear Black men, your mental health matters too. It's something that's not spoken about as often as it should be. But then I thought, you know something, our mental health, both men and women, is our wealth. Our emotional health and well-being is paramount to each of us being able to navigate our everyday challenges, whatever mode of work you are in, whatever industry or arena. We've got to bear in mind that self-care and compassion to oneself is paramount, more now than ever. Okay, I'm just going to play a little snippet for you of this young man and his testimony.
For decades, it's been a taboo subject, and in some communities, it still is. If you're a black man in Britain, you're 17 times more likely to be diagnosed with a serious mental health condition than if you're white. It's a startling statistic, and it led blogger and DJ Keith Dubay to make a film for the BBC to investigate why.
I was diagnosed with depression a few years ago. It was the hollow feeling of worthlessness a lot of the time. It was a horrible experience. It was very confusing because black people don't really do mental illness, so it's not something you grow up hearing a lot about. I think my lowest point was when I was continually waking up thinking, I don't want to live anymore.
For over 2 years, I didn't utter a single word about my depression to anyone. I was too ashamed. But then I decided to out myself.
I wrote a blog, closed my laptop, and I went to sleep. So I've woken up a couple of hours later, and yeah, I had a crazy amount of messages from people. All of the messages were positive. And I also did realize that there were a lot of people just like me that were going through the exact same things I was.
Okay, just to let that sink in for a bit. He goes on a little bit more because he goes on to interview other people. But it was just what he said that was quite profound and was relevant for today's session. And as the BBC reporter mentioned at the outset, she mentioned about men being 17 times more likely to have mental health issues. And whilst we're thinking about that, I saw this quote, and it was a tweet that somebody had put out there, and I thought, you know something, we need to do this more often. And it's a shout out to all the men going through a lot with no one to turn to, because this world wrongly taught our males to mask their emotions. And whether it was through, you know, the culture growing up, you know, don't speak your business, man up. There's all those sayings, man up, what you're crying for, you know, all of those things. It turns you into pressure cookers, you know, and as I've experienced, my pressure cooker blew up Christmas Day. So kidney beans were all over the ceiling and all of that. But I mean, and on the floor, it was a total mess. And every time I go down to the kitchen and see that, it kind of reminds me that I feel glad that I wasn't actually in the kitchen when it happened. But also, it kind of re-emphasizes the fact that with a pressure cooker, it needs to have an outlet. It needs to let the steam come out. So us as individuals, as human pressure cookers sometimes, when we keep things in, it builds up. It builds up. And if we haven't a valve or an outlet, a network or a support infrastructure where we can go and speak in confidence, you know, truth of how we're feeling, something's going to happen. Something's going to give. So I just wanted to sort of like emphasize that this shout out goes to all men, because we can see them. You ask individuals, oh, how you doing? Yeah, I'm good. But inside, they're not. But they don't want to tell you that they're not, because it may be a little stigma. You may look at them differently. But we're here to say we won't. We know how you feel. We go through the same things. We just want you to be open about your feelings, your emotions, so that you can get the help and support that you need. Now I'm going to drop this here and I'm going to let it sort of sink in. As the reporter says, why Black men face greater mental health challenges. I had to share this because it re-emphasizes the fact that we're here, the fact that we're talking about emotional health and well-being. And it says Black men are 17 times more likely to be diagnosed with a serious mental health condition. But then when you think about depression, that blue band, it says most Black men believe depression is normal, with only 31% believing it to be a health problem. Other barriers, as we mentioned before, include denial, being embarrassed for needing treatment, lacking the necessary resources, an intense feeling of hopelessness, or simply not wanting to receive any help. And going back to the video clip, that young man said that he felt hopeless. He was in a hopeless situation, and that's how it enveloped him, and that's how he felt. The overwhelming mantle of hopelessness until he did something about it. Okay, suffering in silence. That can have so many meanings, where you think about stuff that's going on. You don't want anybody to know what's going on, so you suffer in silence rather than speaking out. So it says here, depression is heavily misunderstood, especially in the Black community. And this misunderstanding can take some Black men fearful about being seen as emotional, feeling prohibited from freely sharing what's bothering them. This can lead to Black men feeling forced to remain silent about inner conflicts, and their inability to process those emotions can have real life consequences. Again, this is a subject that we haven't seen outlined in this way, and this is why we're doing it. And we're grateful for you coming along to listen, and also to our panelists who've agreed to be on this session as well. It's not an easy road we travel, and showing our emotions is something that people don't necessarily want to do. Some people freely do it, some people don't. But it's understanding how you can enable your emotions to work with you as opposed to against you. So we'll speak more about that as we go on. I want to drop this one here about suicide and the rates of suicide between ethnic groups, with young Black men aged between 13 to 24 at the highest risk living in England and Wales. Let that sink in. And that was so profound, because I have a 15-year-old son. And I'm always asking him, how are you feeling? If something's bothering you, tell me. And I've been working with him since he was in primary school on his emotional intelligence. That is something that is paramount. For him to come in and be able to speak freely about certain things that have happened, maybe at school, how he's feeling. He's just had his mock exams. And I'm feeling anxious for him as a parent, because I want him to achieve and succeed. But I need him to speak and vocalize how he's feeling, and not sit there and suffer. Schizophrenia is the most common diagnosis among Black Africans and Black Caribbeans who commit suicide. They are less likely to have suicidal ideas and depression than other groups. And then lastly, it's the bit at the bottom in grey. Clinicians reported that suicide was preventable in 31% of Black Caribbeans who committed suicide. So it says suicides within 24 hours of professional contact were most often reported among Black Caribbeans, and suicide within 1 to 7 days was most commonly found among Black Africans. It's a bitter and heavy pill to swallow. What say you, Miss Law?
You know, when you actually hear statistics and you marry it up with how you hear your brothers and your sisters express the Black male's journey, it really does dig deep in your heart. And I say that because as a Black woman, it's hard. Now, as a Black man who is prevented, who's stopped, or there's an obstacle in the way in anything he tries to do or say, it's a heavy burden to carry. And still try to be a man within all of that. Because when you think about the struggle, we all have a struggle. It may differ here or there. However, when you factor in your color, you factor in whether you're a male or a female, then you look at the obstacles in your way. They are the determining factors as to which journey you may take. Now, when you're faced with constant obstacles, neglect, reject, you get to a point where you think, what's the point? And having heard and seen statistics that we don't necessarily pay attention to because we're more focused on those individuals in our lives who are not displaying open conversation, are not being emotional, not expressing themselves the way in which you, as a Black woman or a woman, may do so, makes you really concerned. Because we're there for each other. However,
Absolutely.
if you feel that you're unable to express yourself, and the best way for you to deal with that is go into a shell and remain in a shell, makes that journey so much harder as a us.
Definitely. Yeah. It's what you'd call the uneven yoke, because if you're speaking freely about how you're feeling and you're not getting anything back by way of, yeah, I understand, I'm feeling this, that, then you think, well, why am I bothering? I'm giving, but not receiving. And you don't just give to receive. It's, it's a reciprocal thing.
It's
Asking somebody, asking them how they feel, and then saying, yeah, I'm good. It's like, but are you really? Because you may know, but you're just waiting for them to sort of say. And the little how you feeling is like a prompter, know?
And you also have to look at, if you've been going through something for such a long time, you question that worthiness of that individual that's asking you that question. Is that person genuinely asking how I am? They've known me for a long time. Surely they have identified certain things about me. But yet, on this occasion, you may ask, but am I feeling comfortable enough to express myself? See, it starts somewhere and it ends somewhere. However, it's about that trust. If society you cannot trust, those people close to you who may judge you because you know them closer may also be an additional obstacle in your way.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
as a Black woman and as Black women, we tend to have the upper hand on things in society. We're given the opportunities our males aren't allowed to have. And as a result of that, sometimes that power that they give the Black woman minimizes the Black man or the man.
Yeah.
To the point that that man may just silence himself because you're okay, you're doing okay, I'm struggling, but I'm not going to express that I'm struggling because I'm the man. I'm supposed to stand firm. I'm supposed to represent us.
Yeah.
But I can't.
Yeah.
Because I don't have what it takes. I don't have that confidence. I feel completely irrelevant in society and in my relationship and amongst my family because I'm not doing as I should in my eyes.
And that's a difficult hole to pull somebody out of. You have to be mindful because they might pull you in.
Amen to
Yeah.
that. True.
And the rabbit warren that you go down, you may think, oh, right, this is the exit. Right, come follow me. And then you go deeper. You spiral deeper. And then you get caught up in that and start feeling. And it's about, when somebody projects and it's projected consistently, you can't help but take on board some of it and start feeling, oh, it's almost like putting on a jacket. And after a while, the jacket stays there. And if you're not mindful, you then become part of that. And you start feeling that yourself.
Yeah. But, when I think about my circumstances, my situations, the males I have surrounding me, I see what society is doing. I understand. And it's about you knowing what society is doing to the male. May they be any minority race.
It's true.
It's for you who has that upper hand to identify this is the situation. These are the obstacles. Because everyone has a man in their life, be it their mother, their brother, their sister, their uncle, their partner, their husband. We all have males in our life that may not converse on certain things. It may be health they don't want to talk about. It may be relationship. They're not so open because they haven't had that experience, that love and attention that they needed to give them that balance that they needed in life. So, it's important not to judge people by what you see of them, but get a clearer understanding of who they are and their makeup and how they are going about life and the reason why they take that avenue through life.
Yeah. Thank you, Miss Law. It kind of like leads me on to this quote by Bob Marley. Being vulnerable is the only way to allow your heart to feel true pleasure that's so real it scares you. And I drop it and leave it there because, sometimes because we've been shaped by society, not only by that, but our upbringing as well. Don't talk about anything, keep everything to yourself, all of those things. We have to show our underbelly to understand how we're feeling, process it, but also be able to sort of like be open and honest and upfront with other people about how we're feeling. There's no shame in it. But when you allow yourself to be vulnerable, people see the real you. And as you quite rightly mentioned about women in the workplace, I'm talking from experience here. They see the strong Black woman who seems to be able to multitask and is multifaceted, in their eyes, but in reality, you're seen as a workhorse because then they start piling more things on you because you don't tend to, you might sort of like cuss bluegrass under your breath and think, I didn't really want to get that, but, and then you just go on and do it. So to the other person that's actually piling it on, thinking, oh, right, Jack, fantastic. Yeah, you're doing great. Here's some more. You know, but by saying, look, this is how I'm feeling, I'm overwhelmed. And it's a technique that is not easy if you've not been vocal, you know, in the work environment or in personal life, family situations, to sort of say, look, I'm sorry, my capacity's full. You know, you give individuals the option to say, right, I've got this to do, right? You've asked me to do this and I'm doing this, but you've just given me this. Which one's a priority? I can't do both. Drop one of them. And I did that to one of my bosses. And it was like, oh, well, I want both of them. I said, you can't have both of them. You know, which one's more emergent? Oh, I'll have that one. It's like, right, great, park the other one. And it's about reclaiming your authority and feeling, you know, the strength and power that you have to vocalize. Yeah, I'm overwhelmed, but I can still get the job done.
So let me just be devil's advocate here. Having that opportunity is great to a degree. How about not having that opportunity? Not having the opportunity to have a voice, to make a decision, to say, I'm not doing both. That's our Black man.
Yeah. That's
where we, as Black women in general, it's a fight. And it's not just Black women and Black men. There's a struggle in numerous races.
Yeah.
But it differs depending on the race.
Yeah. The culture, the background, all of those things play a huge role in how we navigate society's landscape.
Indeed.
How we navigate in the communities, you know, that we're part of, and how we interact with our colleagues in the workplace and in the wider social society.
Yeah.
It plays a big part. Okay, food for thought there.
Most definitely.
Definitely food for thought. So, we have three panelists. We have Kwame McPherson, entrepreneur. Kwame, could you just unmute and just say who you are, just quick?
Oh, wow. Who am I? Well, I'm Kwame. in a word, what I do is no different. I'm basically a ghostwriter. I write for other people. I also help people write their own piece of work to share their stories with the world. I'm an award-winning writer, and yeah, there's a lot more, but I'll just leave it at that for the time being.
Thank you so much. I love the entrepreneur. It's a good job I got my teeth in today, get it out there. Thank you for joining us, Kwame.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Right, so we'll go on to Joseph Jones, community support worker. Joseph, just give us a little spiel. Say hi to everyone.
Hi, everybody. What I'd like to say about myself is that I'm a child born in the UK of Grenadian parents. The most significant impact on my life was the death of my father when I was 5 years old. My mother, who's no longer alive now, brought up 5 children without her family support network, which was in the Caribbean, but had developed her own community network of support. My mother was mother and father to me throughout her life. Grew up in Shepherd's Bush, in Hammersmith. My mom never stopped talking to her kids about my father. So as I grew, I had the sense of knowing my father personally, even though I was 5 when he died. My mother was the rock on which I developed into the person that I am today. And I am really bad at self-care. That's all I want to say about myself.
Thank you for sharing that, Joseph. And I'll reprimand you later about the self-care bit. You know, practice it more, try it a bit more. You know, it's important. It's important. Thank you for sharing. And Henderson Murray, founder of Innery. Unmute and Say hi.
Hey Jack, hey Mandy, Kwame, Joseph, and all locked in. Bless up. My name's Henderson Murray. A lot of people know me as Fox or H. I'm the founder of Inner Eye, so I will reprimand you, Jack.
Sorry.
Don't watch that, sis. Inner Eye, yeah. And in a nutshell, I make things happen. I'm a conduit to creativity, to self-expression, to enterprise, and to education for primarily young people when it comes to education, but for all when it comes to creativity. And I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Right. Let's get this party started. Miss Law.
So I have some questions for you as panelists, and I want you to be open and as transparent as possible. As you know, there are people who may be listening, maybe in this group and maybe outside of this group. So my main objective for having this show is for our males to have a voice, for them to be able to express how they feel when they feel it in the moment, and not hide behind being a male, black male, or any male from any minority. So my first question to the panelists is, the term men cry too is to show that all have emotions. What made you agree to be a panelist today? And I'm posing that question to you, Kwame.
Why are you coming to me first?
Why not?
Yeah, why not? Why not indeed? The reason, because I'm an advocate for men speaking, being vulnerable, being open, being transparent, and that because Jackie knows of my last book was about my date with depression, which was about my own depression. So I found that in regards to sharing, like I said, I'm a storyteller, so I love sharing stories which provoke thought, which enable and empower someone else. So my story, as I've found in my journey, has helped so many other men. So the reason why I agreed to come onto this panel is basically to share my story, and to show, because the experiences that I have had have shown men, as you said, tend to be closed, they tend to be not open, and they, when they hear other men, especially if they've been through a particular experience or experiences, and when they hear other men talk about those experiences, it almost gives them permission to speak about their own story. So so my being here is basically a part of my journey of sharing my story that can help somebody else in their journey, and yeah, and where they're at in their own life, you know. So that's why I agreed to be on this panel, to share my story to help someone else.
Thank you so much. Joseph, I'd like to pose the same question to yourself. Well, what made you agree to be on the panel?
Pure and simply, Jackie asked me, so that's why I'm here. But more deeply, when Jacqueline said that it's about men and their feelings, it really struck a chord with me. And similar to Kwame, I've been through my own battles with depression, and I thought that I would be able to share with the community here how I've coped, and maybe that might help others to cope. One of the key things for me about this is that unfortunately we aren't necessarily given the tools in order to be able to cope. And so a lot of the issues around men not being able to share their feelings, their true feelings, about how they are actually doing, is around the fact that this is something that isn't practiced. And if you don't know, you don't have that, how are you able to do it? So that's why I'm here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And also for yourself, Henderson, what made you agree to be on this panel?
Man, like Joseph just said, obviously, I was asked to come onto the panel, which I'm appreciative of. Inner Eye and iLive, we've looked at working together and doing bits and pieces. So there is that respect as well for what Talk On This does and is looking to provide. But the interesting thing for me was the fact that the subject, Men Cry Too, you know, let's have an open conversation. While you and Jack were sharing and laying the foundation, I had messages coming through to me saying, haven't heard from the male panelists yet. Are you guys going to talk? Da, 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 da. And that was like kind of 25 minutes in. Now, that's not a finger pointing thing. That's part of the overall issue, which is sometimes people will talk for you. And for me, I wanted to be part of a panel, part of a platform, which not only would share stories, but would also learn. Because everywhere you go and everything you do, there's learning involved. But it's a case of whether you choose to learn or not. And one of the things I feel for me, unlike with what Joseph and Kwame were saying, it's not a case of I haven't necessarily gone through A, B, or C to get to this point, but I recognized in the passing of my cousin, the impact of, even if you have got outlets, even if I see myself as someone who's quite well balanced in checking in with myself, having a wife who supports me and gives me space, people around me who encourage me to be the best me, even with all of those things in place, the death of my cousin, I crashed hard. And a lot of people struggled because they were accustomed to me being the decision maker or one of the strong leaders or whatever, which had a lot of people circling around wondering, okay, what do we do? So sometimes it's about looking at your network and ensuring that they have tools to help you when you need the help. Not so much that you just need the tools, but the people around you sometimes need some tools, because if you're in the middle, maybe you can't see what's going on. So that's why I wanted to be on this panel, to share and to learn. Hope that makes sense.
Thank you so much. You know, it's nice to have a male perspective as a woman, as women. As you can see presently there are a number of women on this forum, on this Zoom as we speak. However, that interests me because it shows me there is a lack of understanding as to why we're experiencing what we're experiencing with our Black men. So it's either a journey they've been through and they want to understand what has happened along the way. It could be a break in a relationship. It could be a father figure. It could be a brother just not doing, quote unquote, what they expect. But my thing is this: you cannot expect anything of anyone. You can give them guidance. You can give them help. You can aid them wherever necessary. But to expect from someone is going to bring disappointment to you if they're not able to live up to your standards. So everyone has their set standard. Everyone has their way of doing things. However, it's about that understanding, being able to conversate with that individual who is a male, Black, white, whatever color he may be. And for him to be able to have a voice, for him to be able to express how he is feeling. I want everyone to just think about what the panelists have expressed, and some things that they have said, you probably resonate with you, and you probably think, oh God, yeah, I feel that. You know, I've gone through that. That is the reason why I am here. But please feel free to express yourself. We're going to open up the forum for everyone to be able to have a conversation collectively together as one. I want to pose question number 2 to the panelists. And I'm going to allow you, gentlemen, to say who wishes to respond first. I'm going to leave the ball in your courts. Why do men find it difficult to communicate their pain? So why do men find it difficult to communicate their pain? Anyone who wishes to speak? I believe, Kwame, you wish to take the floor?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and like I said, and I'm going on the basis of my experience of dealing with being in a particular place.
Yes.
When I was in that space, I had no idea of who I was, why I was here, what my role in terms of my own life, and what that looked like. But funny enough, unfortunately, for me, I had a woman who loved me at the time, my ex, and she saw in me what I didn't see myself. And she was the one who suggested at the time that we take a trip to the motherland. Now, I'm sharing this because I think in terms of African Caribbean men in particular, there's a reason why we find it very difficult to communicate our pain. I'm no psychologist. None of that. I just go on the basis of my own story, my own journey. What struck me was when I went to Ghana in particular and Cape Coast specifically, and on the western coast of Africa, there's about 40 or 50 enslavement castles where ancestors came through to the Americas. And I'm talking about mainly probably African American men also, as well as African Caribbean, but in particular, I'm African Caribbean, and I'm talking about that. And what I experienced was I went into the dungeons of the fort, and I started to think about the families at the time, they were taken from the inner sphere of Africa and taken to the fort. Now remember, we're talking about families, whether they're partners, girlfriend, boyfriend, children, wives, husband and wives, and being torn apart. Now I want this to resonate because it resonated with me in such a way that I had to go back to the source as to why I was in so much pain. And when I started to think and imagine them being in shackles, in chains, being dragged through the fort onto the ships, remember, they're separated. They're not together. They're not a family. So the man will see his partner being whisked away. He will never see her again. See his children taken away. He wants to fight for his loved ones. He wants to fight for them so badly, but he can't. He's disempowered. He's in chains. He wants to cry, but he can't cry. He can't show any weakness in front of the enslaver because then that would give the enslaver more power to subjugate him. So in my mind, I'm saying, hold on a minute. So he was in so much pain. He wanted to protect his family, but he couldn't. So he had to internalize the pain. Now for me, like I said, I'm a layman. That's how I look at it as a story. That's how it impacted on my life. I think that's where a source of our internalization began, because it's still in our DNA to this day. And I think history plays a massive part in how we are today as Black men, and how that particular part of my journey resonated with me. It made me understand that what I was going through was the norm, but it was based on something that happened to us as a people thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago. So for me, that's where I think it started. And I think for us to revisit that source, for many of us on that journey, rather than looking at the actual layers, because there are layers that came afterwards, but it's actually going to the source, because everything starts with a source. And I think that's where the source of our pain had begun, for us to internalize the pain, not talk about it, because subconsciously in our DNA, we're still protecting ourselves from the enslaver. And that's for me is always as simple as I can think how we find it difficult to explain why we're in pain, why we can't communicate the pain. But like I said, that's my story, that's my journey. That's how I came to understand myself and understand why it was so difficult for me to speak about certain things, why it was so difficult for me to just be open and vulnerable. Because in my subconscious back in the day, I was protecting myself from the enslaver, but it's in our DNA in that sense. So that's my reasoning behind why we find it difficult today, as a source, because of everything that came afterwards, which are societal and create layers.
Thank you so much. please also think about what Kwame is saying. I'm going to open the floor when all the panelists have actually expressed themselves to just be able to have a conversation amongst us, to be able to pose those questions you may feel that you want to ask. I do want to get through the questions so that I can open the floor to the whole of the room. So just bear with me. I just really want the guys to express themselves and give us a clear understanding of their journey as Black men. Joseph.
Thank you. I think that men do communicate their pain, but it's how they communicate it. So it won't necessarily be through words, it may well be through actions that they're expressing that things are not great. And they may not even know, like I didn't know for myself, that I was going into a depressive state because I couldn't recognize it, because I didn't know what to look for. And so it's about whether or not the people that are around you can read the signs that demonstrates that maybe something's not right here. The culture, the society that we live in has such an incredible effect on us all, but particularly if you are from the African diasporic community. So first and foremost, we're living in a place where the dominant culture champions stoicism in all its people. It looks upon the fact that you can receive bad news and not cry, not show any emotion on the outside. It sees that as something that is fantastic. You just need to look at any news story where something sad or tragic has happened, and you look at the responses. If the person has responded in a way which they have, it's just normal. That's just this happened to me, and this is how I've got on with my life. I've just got on with my life, and that is lauded. Whereas if you are able to express emotion, that is something that is frowned upon in this society. So I can remember growing up with the term "boys don't cry." That has a significant impact. I've been to funerals whereby, and this is now as an adult, I've been to funerals whereby there are times when the emotion has struck me and I actually want to cry. And I have been stopped from crying because it's not a showing of strength. So when my mother died, which was in 2003, we all went to Grenada for the funeral because she was living in Grenada at the time, and it was a double funeral because 3 days after my mother died, my grandmother died, and I had to hold it together from the time that I got the news all the way through to the actual burial, the actual funeral itself, because I realized that there was so many logistical pieces to deal with that I couldn't go to pieces until my mother and my grandmother were buried. And as soon as they were buried, I wanted some time on my own in order so that I could cry and I could show the emotion that I wanted to. And I wasn't allowed to be alone. So that emotion backed up in me. And I came back to the UK and was sort of getting on with life. And then suddenly memories of my mother would come up and I wouldn't be able to stop crying. It became something that was uncontrollable. And I didn't know what to do. I did not know what to do. And I knew that my sisters were suffering, but I don't know if they were going through precisely the same thing that I was going through. But I knew that I was really, really struggling with it. Really, really struggling with it. And it took me going to register for a GP. And they had, I don't know how many GP surgeries have this now, but they had a bereavement counsellor. And whilst the nurse was asking me the questions, the regular questions about my health and about my family history, when she asked me about my mother, I couldn't stop crying. I just burst into tears and I couldn't stop crying. And she said, well, I think the bereavement counsellor might be somewhere that you need to go and actually get some help. And yeah, that was a revelation for me, because being able to be somewhere where I wasn't judged, where somebody had expert experience in dealing with these issues, helped me immensely to come to terms with the fact that I was still grieving, but hadn't been through the necessary processes in terms of grieving. One of the psychological issues that affect people is that when you go through something that is quite traumatic, something that really affects you deeply, you must be able to express that somehow. Whether that's expressing it through talking, whether that's expressing it through some kind of physical activity or something, you must be able to share that, to get that out of your system.
Yeah.
And as you've been saying, so many times we aren't afforded the opportunity to actually get something out of our system. Now, if you are not well paid, if you have lots of other things which are impacting on your life in terms of giving yourself time to actually think and do stuff, you just have to get on and live with it. You cannot, you don't have the luxury of being able to actually sit down, take the time, pay for the consultation, and receive the help that you need. So I'm just saying that there are lots of things that get in the way. And racism is probably the biggest issue, but I won't even go into touch onto that because I feel I've spoken for too long already. But there are just so many things.
Yes.
There are just so many layers which actually either stifle you, change you in terms of how you're able to express things, or you just don't know how to.
Okay.
You just don't know how to.
Yeah, I completely understand. Henderson, I would like to pose the same question to yourself.
Thanks, man. Joseph, what you said in terms of, it's interesting because one of the key things for me, and man, do you know me already, right? Yeah. It's about words, you know what I'm saying? And the question, why do men find it difficult to communicate? Communicate for me is the key thing there, because communication looks like different things to different people. Kwame alluded to it, Joseph touched on it and kind of opened it up when he said it's about the how, which is important because communication, depending on the books that you read, I use this all the time with my students. Up until yesterday, I was doing a session over in North London, and I said to my students, I made them aware, it's like 30 young people, I was like, look, 57% of your communication is non-verbal, it's through your body language. So if your body language is off, considering 37% of your communication is through tone. And we've all been brought up with that. It's not what you said, it's how you said it. So that means that you could have the strongest vocabulary. As a black man, you may be trying to get the words out that I'm hurting, I'm struggling, I need support. But your body language is saying something totally different. Yeah. So therefore, your partner, your family, your friends, your wider social circle, they can't read it because your words, which is 5%, which is the smallest way to communicate, you're putting a lot of emphasis on how comes they're not hearing? I've told them, I've said that I'm struggling. But your body language is saying something totally different. And that's the largest way to communicate. So there's going to be a gap. You know what I'm saying? And the thing is that what's interesting is our family's small, right? My sister, my mum and dad, who love the bones off. And when we were growing up, we saw communication, not always healthy. You know, getting into it, that's our family thing, but it wasn't always healthy. Yeah. But one of the things that, for me, I said, listen, there's certain things that I saw I am not going to take into my life as a black man, as an adult, simple as.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And as I've got older, and fortunately, both mum and dad are still here. My sister was still tight as ever. Like I said, I've got my queen, the best wife, who's my best friend. I've got that network of people who I'm able to discuss and share with in terms of trying to understand, and I say trying to understand the way that we communicate. Because as confident as I am, and as much as I've got people around me who I respect and love, me and Jack, listen, I met Jackie when we come to do our show. Jackie and I now come like family, because when you like knows like, you know what I mean? Real knows real, simple as. Yes. I know as a fact that with Joseph, with Kwame, we will carry on talking outside of the show because there's a reason why Jackie and yourself put us together on this panel. There are going to be people who are listening in, who hopefully it will resonate with, and they will have questions for. But the bottom line is communicating pain will always be a moving piece. It's an organic thing. How you communicate pain one day may be totally different to how you communicate pain the next time, because it always depends. You know that whole, and I've always got my teaching hat on, so apologies, but it isn't really apologies because Mandy knows me anyway from morning, right? And it's like that kind of cycle where it's like my attitude informs my behavior, which informs your attitude, which informs your behavior. That's the cycle that we're always in. Yeah. The only problem is that as a black man, sometimes people try to force us into changing our behavior to fit with their attitude to what they expect our behavior to look like. Mm-hmm. So therefore, when we're trying to communicate effectively, they're missing the signals. You know what I mean? When I was growing up, one of my things was this. If I'm going to, I wasn't always in trouble. I wasn't one of those road guys. My mum would beat the menolin out of my system if she ever thought I was saying I was a roadman, because I wasn't. But I was mischievous, right? But the bottom line is this. When you get to that point that someone's pushing your buttons, I used to say to people, listen, if I repeat myself 3 times, that third time, fists are flying. So if I say, what did you say? What did you say? The third, what did you say? It's going to kick off. Do you know what I mean? Right? Yeah. And the relevance to that is this. Sometimes I might just say, I'm a hugger, I'm tactile. So everyone, we was at a funeral on Friday. Some of the people we haven't seen for like 30 years, 35 years, 40 years in a couple of cases.
Yeah.
But we hugged as though we only saw each other yesterday. Because it's about, for me, being 100% present in how you feel and where you are. And those people that are around you, allowing them to know that you're 100% present in how you feel. So if I say I'm vexed, leave me alone. Don't keep asking me, am I all right? If I say to you that I'm sad, guaranteed from I've said that, I will be explaining to you why I'm sad. I'm not necessarily looking for solutions.
Yeah.
I just want to offload. You know what I'm saying?
Thank
and
you.
that's why we need to understand what communication looks like. Done, finished,
so
nothing more.
Moving on swiftly to our next question. Time is ticking by. What is the cause of depression in men, and how can it be managed? And guys, that's between you guys. Whoever wants to go first, go for it. So what are the causes of depression in men, and how can it be managed? Go for it, Henderson.
Man, I'm going to say, and keep it short, because I know people might want to jump in. I personally feel that that question is loaded. It's a show on its own. You can't answer that, because what Joseph just said about the loss of his mum and then his grandmother within that short space of time, that could push you into a spiral. Kwame was talking about the need to go to Africa to kind of reconnect and anything can open up that door. So I won't necessarily answer that question in terms of what causes depression. What I would say is it's better to understand what some of the signs look like, so that you can seek the help and support. Because the management of depression isn't because I'm confident, because I've read a couple of self-help books, I'm going to be able to get through. No, it could be a lot deeper. And if it's not treated and supported, what might have been a depressive state can go into chronic or clinical, which could lead to suicide or self-harming or anything else. So I would say it's more about the signs, looking for the signs. And that's me saying no more.
Thank you so much.
And Henderson, you're so right, and I couldn't agree with you more, because there's so many reasons. And like you said, the self-help stuff from the person, I did all of that to a great extent, and I still went into a bout of depression, so you're so correct. It's about the signs and looking for what those signs are, because the reasons can be so numerous, from financial woes to childhood trauma to work to whatever it is. There's a lot of reasons for why a man would be in a particular place. But Henderson is correct, and I agree with him 100%. It is about looking at the signs, because whatever the reason is, it's what tends to happen is the signs afterwards. What does it look like? What does it? Because the sign, the depression has almost like a playbook, modus operandi. It has a way of playing out. So the reasons are in itself, but it's what happens at the other end in terms of when it starts to take hold and starts to take place. So Hendon is so true, so right, so correct.
Thank you so much.
Agreed.
And for yourself, Joseph?
I agree with all that's gone before, and I don't have anything to add about that. But the second half of the question, how can it be managed? From what I know and from my own experiences, it's can be managed by either talking therapy, meditation, exercise, medication. In some cases, there's various means, and maybe through the questions that come up or the comments that are made, we might delve a bit more into that. But that's it for me.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, I was going to add actually.
Go for it.
Yeah, and which is again, in terms of the solutions in regards to dealing with it. One of the things I found, like I said, I'm a storyteller. I found writing helps. So in terms of keeping a journal, and I've had experiences of where myself, because I've written my own book, but I also had experiences of other people journaling and writing and talking, of course, and meditating, reading the right books, having the right people around, and all that kind of stuff. So in terms of how to manage it, there are a number of steps and solutions before it gets to the point where it is chronic, where you have to get medication and all that kind of stuff. So that's what's elaborating a bit on Joseph's point, which is agree with Joseph exactly what he said. Talking is one of the biggest ones, and men in particular, we don't talk. So we need to talk more. And more men talking and being seen to be talking helps other men.
100%. Moving on swiftly.
Sorry, man, can I just add something to what Kwame said?
Yes, you may.
Sorry.
Go for it.
Just to add on is this. It's not even so much, Kwame, about the not talking. It's about the active listening. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Because the thing is, right, you know already that there's certain people that you will talk to just crack bare jokes. And it's about you being able to differentiate who you can talk to. You know what I mean? So don't go to the person that you just talk rubbish with to get deep conversation, because then it's a you problem, not them problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When they can't come back to you with what it is that you're looking for. So that's the only thing I was going to add on. I completely agree with Kwame, but then I'll say the active listening and knowing who to go to, that's key.
Yeah. True.
Thank you so much, guys. What support or initiatives would you consider signing up for with regards to your emotional health and well-being? Big question.
Sorry, just before we go on, is there nobody else that wants to come in on any of the things we've been talking about?
They will be coming in shortly.
Okay.
Okay. So what support and initiative would you consider signing up for with regards to your your emotional health and well-being? And that's to any one of you guys.
Well,
go for it, Fox. Oh, yeah. Kwame.
Okay.
No, Kwame, take it, man. Take it, King.
No, we're already doing it, aren't we? Really, in a sense, we're having a forum where we're talking about the experiences that we've been through. So the first thing is like what we're doing right now, and this is where it begins, really. Having the discussion in the way that we are. So that's what I would say in regards to that. There are initiatives, but I'll let Fox jump in if Anderson jump in if you wish.
Bless up, King. No, listen, you're right, Kwame. But I was also going to say, as I alluded to at the start, my mental health was challenged, and we went to a funeral on Friday where one of my close friends explained that her husband had kind of noticed, it's like, even though Fox is still Fox, ever since his cousin died, he's different. Do you know what I mean? And I haven't got I'm going to be seeing him in a couple of weeks, so I'm going to ask him, okay, what do you mean? Not because it's relevant, but it's good that he saw, because I know that I'm different. I've told people there's no hiding from it. And without the support of the Samaritans, for me, right, which I have no qualms with letting people know, I got them on speed dial, right? When my cousin died, I gripped up a guy on the bus on my way to a workshop, and I thought I was in a clear headspace. This guy done nothing to me apart from brush past me.
Yeah.
And then I had to be let off the bus, and I got tears running down my face. Yeah. And God spare life, thank you Most High. As I come through my door, Classic FM was playing, and an ad for the Samaritans was on, and I just rang them. And I will never forget that Wednesday, and all my people know, because they've heard this. The Wednesday, I was on the phone with them for about an hour and a half. The Thursday, I was on the phone with them for about 45 minutes. On the Friday, I was on the phone with them for about 30 minutes. And by that weekend, I started to find me again. Wasn't there, because my cousin's still dead, but I started to find me. I was able to talk. And like Joseph had alluded to, I cry easily because you've got to be able to offload and outload. Exactly, man. But the thing is, at the time, I didn't know what I was crying for.
Yeah.
I was crying for things that had no relevance, I thought, to my cousin. And it was only by speaking to Samaritans that I realized everything was linked. So find your service, whatever it looks like.
Yeah, 100%. And the last panelist?
Sorry. Gosh, I was just thinking that it's not the question about signing up for something makes me nervy. What I would say is that it's for me, it was the support network those that are around me that were able to help support me to get the professional help that I needed.
Yeah.
That was what was key, not me looking and saying, yeah, I think I go with this. Or it was actually one of my nephews, actually. He went with me to see my GP.
Yeah.
And that was the point.
That was your signing up.
In a sense.
Signing up isn't necessarily an organization that you're going to expose yourself to. It could be that conversation with that person who has been sitting next to you for a year and you just haven't divulged that feeling that you're feeling within yourself. Signing up could mean just having that cry, allowing your body to go through those channels. So you're actually saying to yourself, okay, I feel this way. I need to embrace this. I need to do something about it. I'm suffering in silence. However, I'm going through the same cycle over and over again, but I'm not doing anything. I'm not expressing myself. I'm not crying. I'm not shouting. I'm not finding advice that can help me. It may be music. It may be entertainment. It may be communication. So that's the things that you'd be signing yourself up to, not necessarily to an organization that's going to administer medication. It's just a matter of the word signing up means different things to different people, depending on their mindset. Go ahead, Kwame.
Yeah, and it's interesting in terms of what you said and what even Henderson said and Joseph too, because I was in a situation where I had done a lot of work on myself in regards to, like I said, I'm into personal development. And at the time when I was going through, and even when I came back from the motherland, I was still facing challenges because I was still in that space. And it was like a conflict. I won't go into detail at the time. But what came out of that is that I recognized, as Henderson said, that there was something triggered me to do something. And I remember the relationship that I was in at the time. Because every time there was a discussion or a confrontation, not that it was negative in any sense, I used to run away. I didn't want to confront. I didn't want to communicate. I was gone. So, but I realized that it was a problem, it was an issue. So I went to the ex at the time and I said, listen, I don't know what it is. There's something going on. I need some help with this problem. And she actually referred me to a counselor. So the same thing, like Henderson actually seen something that's clicked, and she referred me to a counselor. And it was because of that experience and like Joseph and the GP, there's something that somewhere along the line, something happens in order for us to recognize and be aware. And that for me was what happened with myself. I was referred to a counselor and after that trip to the counselor, it was, then I started to see myself and everything else that had transpired up to that time, and I came out of it much better because then I become much more aware of myself. And aware of the support of those around me.
And it's really important, the awareness, you identifying, you recognizing, you documenting it however you feel is necessary for you, and making those steps to make the change for yourself. Thank you so much, guys. The final question, what advice would you give to other men in encouraging them to be vocal about how they are feeling? Joseph, go for it.
Simple thing to do is to find somebody that you can confide in and that they will support you. It's to have at least a person that that you can trust, and just if you're able, if there is one person that you can turn to and say, this is how I'm feeling. I'm not feeling this. That's what it takes.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yourself, Kwame?
I think more of these discussions need to happen. I think this is where it starts. Is I think that and really just taking on Joseph's point, I think we give men permission to speak. So for example, I've had situations where I've been in other forums and men have reached out to me after the forum, so this is where it begins, and a lot more discussions like this needs to take place. And I mean, and like I said, and because of us, just giving other men permission to do so, you know, and I also encourage men to write, like I said, but which is a way in terms of having a voice, you know, having their own voice and putting that voice down. But even if they're unable to communicate as much as they would like, at least put their voice down on paper. Yeah. You know, and be able to reflect on that. And I have stories about those too. But I think this is where it begins, in a forum like this, because, like I said, we just don't know what can happen. Somebody may reach out afterwards, and so on and so forth. So for me, it takes in everything. You know, individuals finding someone they can relate to, or a forum like this where they can actually hear and see themselves and find permission to speak. You know.
Thank you so much. And Henderson.
Yeah, exactly what Joseph and Kwame shared. Totally agree, totally concur. Forum's wicked. You must probably hear it in my voice already. My teeth are skinning because I think this has been fantastic. So I love that. Man, do you know that I'm somebody, I love quotes. So I just dropped 2 quotes that for me kind of, not so much the advice, but to think about. So the first one is, you didn't come this far to just come this far. You know what I'm saying? So all of us will have things that we have to navigate. Jackie was talking about before, and Joseph was talking about with like barriers and the hurdles and how you navigate. You didn't come this far to just come this far. So don't be afraid to reach out, ask for help, get support. Sometimes just look inwardly and check in with yourself. You know, Kwame talked about it before. I'm sure it was Kwame said, it was either Kwame or Joseph. I think it might have been Joseph maybe. We said about self-care. I can't remember which one, so apologies, right? But make sure that you are taking care of yourself. But then the other quote is this one, and I love it. And it's ambiguous, but read into it what you will. Every morning in Africa, a gazelle wakes up. It knows it must run faster than the fastest lion, or it will be killed. Every morning in Africa, a lion wakes up. It knows it must outrun the slowest gazelle, or it will starve to death. It doesn't matter whether you're a lion or a gazelle. When the sun comes up, you better be running. And for me, that's it. When the sun comes up, you got to have your game on, whatever that looks like. Find joy in something to keep you moving. That's it. Done.
Thank you so much.
Okay, right. So now I'm going to stop sharing and see all these lovely people in front of us. We're going to open the platform to everyone and invite you to ask a question. And I think it's safe to say we haven't got hordes of people that are on the platform. We can ask you to unmute and speak, you know, and ask a question.
I know some people may be a little bit shy.
Or if you want to drop it in the chat, I will read it out.
Yeah, happily put your question in the chat room. And if you wish to pose it to the group or someone individually, by all means do so. You know, for me, I'm just going to kickstart things. For me, having something like this, knowing that I have so many males in my family, I have over 13 nieces and nephews, and seeing my nephews grow up and have children, and their children are going to have children, and knowing that they have somewhere to come to express how they feel is important to me as a Black woman. And I say that because when you hear those stories about people that have fallen into depression, they were on their own, it's heart-wrenching. And all that boils down to is not having someone to communicate with, someone that you could not confide in, someone that you didn't necessarily trust to be open about how you feel. You're sitting there lonely, just going through day-to-day life. And it's simple. Just a rejection in a job could put you over the edge, because that could be one of 200 jobs you went for. And then you start to self-analyze yourself. Oh, I didn't have the qualification. Maybe it was the color of my skin. Maybe it was the tone that I spoke in. You start to question who you are as a man. And then you make yourself the problem. When it's society that have made you feel like you're a problem. They reject you. They don't allow you to have a voice. They put your women over you. They use every avenue to stop you from being the man that you're supposed to be. So there's no right or wrong of how a man should be, but a man should be able to express himself as openly as a woman should be. A man should have a voice as a woman has a voice. If a man feels uncomfortable about something, he should be allowed to be able to voice that opinion and not be judged because of the color of his skin or the fact that he is a black male. So there are so many contributing factors as to why the black man cannot be expressive, cannot be understood, won't be understood, not being allowed to be understood, which makes things very difficult. But if I'm going on too much, please stop me. I want to see someone come off of mute.
I was just going to say that Susan is happy to ask a question, Miss Law.
Go ahead, Susan, please do.
So first and foremost, I just want to say thank you very much to the men for sharing so openly and honestly. It's much appreciated, because it's only by hearing that we understand and that we're able to do whatever we can do. And I guess in line with that, what was going through my mind is sometimes you engage with men and you recognize that there's something wrong. But then, whether it's a husband, brother, father, son, or what have you, or just a young person you know, or whoever, there's a question as to how best to engage, and I guess different things for different circumstances, because how much you push, how the best. So I guess what I'm saying is, in general terms, when we recognize that there's something wrong, or there seems to be something wrong, how would you recommend that we best engage without forcing ourselves on people or trying to, should I say, compel them to talk?
Can I take this one?
Yes, you may.
Susan, I would say that you have to be sensitive to the person's needs and to the person's wants. My brother is older than I am, and I often want to reach out to him because I can see that there's a lot of pain that he is actually suffering with. He's been through his own depressive episodes before I did, and has worked his way out of it. But I've never ever been able to sit down with him and have a serious heart-to-heart. And it's not through my ignoring. I've tried, and what happens is that on a certain level, my brother kind of knows what's coming, and he's not ready to handle it. And I've got to respect that. As hard as it is, that's all I can do, is be ready to receive and to help, but can't push it, cannot push it. it just does not work if you try to force somebody into something that they are not ready for. They have to be ready for it. That's my answer.
Thank you. I'm nodding my head as you're talking. I very much appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and to add to that, and you and I, Joseph, have gone through the similar experiences actually where that is concerned, and you're correct. We can't compel someone to speak when they're not ready to speak. Can't compel someone to do what they don't want to do until they're ready, if they're ever going to be ready, you know. But you just have to love them same way, embrace them same way, and know that you're when in that space who you are and your truth, basically standing your own truth. So yeah, and Susan, until they're ready, you know, there's not a lot you can actually do around that. But you can try and have a positive outlook in terms of everything that you're doing around you. You know what I mean? The programs that you watch on TV, whatever it is. So have it's an energy, bring a positive energy around. But whenever the person's ready, then that's when they'll decide to do what they need to do, and when they become aware, based on how other people interact with them. You know.
It's very interesting. Can I just jump in? It's very interesting because, like, I tend to sort of like look out for the signs. Not that I'm walking around, you know, searching for somebody to sort of like open up. The kind of work that I do with emotional intelligence, you know, it's that saying, you know, dance a yard before you dance abroad. So I've got my son, I've got my daughter, I've got my husband as well, and you know, certain things that crop up, I tend to sort of like, is everything okay? It's just letting them know that you're there without actually, you know, overshadow it. Because I mean, my daughter and my son get saying, "Oh, you're doing the EI stuff on me now, are you?" And it's like, no, I'm not. It's just me being mum with, you know, a touch of empathy, compassion, and knowing that you want to talk, but I'm not going to press you. Come to me when you're ready, you know. Show that you are interested and you're there for them means a lot more to an individual rather than you saying, look, I'm there for you. Them sort of like inquiring, and then when they're ready, it's like, oh, I'm not available. You know, I've actually answered calls late in the night, and I'm sure my husband's thinking, why? When are you clocking off? But you know, when somebody needs you and they, you know, they're feeling, and I will say this, because I do sort of like bullying and harassment. But when I got a phone call from somebody that said to me long afterwards, because they having counselling, they said, I'm so glad you answered the phone, because if you didn't, this was what I was going to do. And I was like mortified. And I said, thank you, you know, that I was able to get up, and because I don't have my phone in my bedroom, there's a thing where, you know, the phones are left in my office so that I'm not sort of like, I'm trying to do that with the TV, but it's not working with my husband. You know, not have any devices. But the fact of the matter is, you know, showing somebody that you care, you know, treating them with respect and empathy and compassion goes a long way. And it goes back to that Maya Angelou quote, you know, people may forget, you know, what you say, what you did, but they won't forget how you made them feel at that time.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah.
You know,
Any more questions?
Yes, please ask away.
Can I just come in whilst waiting for another
sure.
question? So yesterday I was on a course, and it was a woman who was detailing the experiences of her father, who had been a political prisoner in a Nazi concentration camp during World War II, and he's of Caribbean descent. And she was saying that he didn't speak about his experiences for 20 years. Just did not speak. So as much as she tried to find out what had happened to him during the war, he just didn't speak. Now, she doesn't know what it was that eventually made him open up. But to me, we need time in order to be able to, if we don't have processes at hand in order to help us to deal with issues, we have to process it ourselves, and that just takes time. And as Kwame said, maybe you never reach the stage where that person is ready to actually talk. But yeah, 20 years it took.
You know, it really gets you thinking when you hear certain things. I mean, you're talking about someone who's quite elderly and has suppressed those feelings for a very long time. Now, emotionally and psychologically, that's eating away at him internally. He's not able to express because he's not ready. He's not able to have those conversations that other person can say, well, I'm there for you. I support you. I care for you. And it's those little things that, like Susan said, like she doesn't know what to say. She doesn't know, you know, what's okay to ask for, what's not okay to ask. And that in itself puts a strain on the other person. But because of their love and compassion for that individual, they hang on in there. And that's important. Don't give up on someone that you believe in, trust in, be it a friend, foe, family, whoever it may be. Just know that they're going through something.
Yeah.
And just knowing that you are there means the world to them. If nothing else is good in their life, just knowing that if I call this person, they will answer the phone. If I meet this person and they give me a hug, I feel that hug going right through my body.
Yeah.
Because you never know when that last moment is there for that individual.
And it's interesting what you said, Mandy, because I was just about to mention that. Susan, one of the things that can help is human touch, hugging. You know, you don't have to say anything, just hug them. Just hug, and men in particular. When we get a hug, it's like our mom hugging us when we're younger, and you just never know. It can lead to somewhere else. They may just open up, they may break down. But just a hug, you don't have to say anything. Just a hug, just a random hug every time. Then when you say, "Well, I just love you" or whatever, you know what I mean? Just a hug, and that in itself can do wonders to someone who's in a particular space. That's what I experienced. It made me, like the guy said earlier, like Joseph Van Henderson said, I cried when I was in that actual space. I didn't know why I was crying, but because I had that human touch now, and it made me open up, and it's like somebody was connecting with me rather than talking with me and compelling me to talk, you know? So yeah, I agree with you, Mandy. Just a simple hug will help, suffice.
I mean, feel free to open up your mics. I mean, even yeah, I agree. It is nice.
Definitely.
You just need to have a voice, everyone, please.
Sorry, man. Yeah, what Kwame was just saying, 100. But also I'd say just generally, you know what I'm saying? It's about being, I said that thing about 100% present, your integrity. You know, if you ain't got the space to listen to the person, because look, for me, one of the things is this: my job is about support. You know, that's what I do to my young people. That's what I do to people that I mentor. And I tell people all the time, it's the best job in the world, but you've got to have a switch off. And one of the things is that sometimes when you're accustomed to doing what you do, it's hard to switch off because people think that you're always in that mode. And you have to be strong enough and honest enough to say, look, I ain't got space at the moment. I don't have capacity. Because if you're trying to support somebody, if you're trying to support your brother, your uncle, your son, your cousin, your husband, what have you, as much as they may need your support, if you don't have the capacity, it's just going to go really wrong really quick. Because, sorry, man, I was just going to say, because one of the things is managing expectation. You might say, oh, how are you feeling? As a throwaway statement, and they want to offload how they're feeling. But because of the day that you've had, you don't have capacity to manage that as well as what you're already managing. So it's about being honest in the space that you occupy with a person. Male, female, black, white, Asian, it makes no odds. You always have to be 100% present, 100% you. Because the best way that you can help somebody is by letting them know, I am genuinely here to listen to you. So you listen to them. But if you can't, let them know that too, because that honesty will go a long way. That's all I was going to say.
Go ahead, Jackie.
Yeah, I was just going to read Susan's message that she's just popped in there before I say anything. She says, I guess there's also a balance between our needs to resolve people's problems and the person's own needs to reach the place, if ever, when they are ready to talk.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. And it is really, really important that we recognize this. And as we've all sort of like alluded to, and I'll re-emphasize, the self-care aspect is so paramount. We can't pour from an empty cup. We have to sort of like look at our own needs, our emotional health and well-being. And it's whether we sort of like just switch off, because I could be in my office doing the work that I'm doing from morning till night, and I've actually worked right through until 2 o'clock in the morning. And then time catch me and I'm thinking, oh, wow, kind of like slink into bed. And it's almost like, you know, you feel like a naughty child because you've done something wrong. But not only that aspect, you feel depleted. So the next day when I've got stuff that I need to do, I don't feel as if I'm firing on all cylinders. So what I've done is I will get up early, I will come in, check my emails, and then go into my meetings, training, whatever I'm doing. But at a certain time, I will switch off my computer and go downstairs and actually be the mum, be the wife, be myself, and tap into Netflix and just, you know, catch up on my programs, or, you know, just not to have to think about work, because it consumes you 100% if you let it.
I just wanted to add to that as well. As much as you may know someone who is a male who is going through something, as a woman, express how you feel. When you're going through stuff, we all go through stuff on a day-to-day basis, but we as women sometimes, oh, he wouldn't understand, I need to speak to one more females. You're in a relationship with someone, or it's your mother, your father, or your brother, your uncle, or whoever it may be. You have a relationship with them also. So knowing that someone is going through something and just expressing that, oh, today was a bad day, I was feeling low, they feel like they can open up to you because they see you as this perfect individual. You know, you're untouchable, you're successful, you're able to earn what you're able to get jobs. However, they believe that you're not going through anything when you are going through things. But what you try to do is not tell them that you're going through things because you think that that's going to burden them. But sometimes them knowing that you're going through things as well and they're going through things, it sometimes opens up that conversation to say, well, God, I didn't know he was going through all this. And by the way, I'm going through this. And I think that's so key. And once again, it boils down to that communication.
There's also having that safe space as well, though, Miss Law, you know, because people, you know, if they feel that they've got when I say culturally safe space, because it's not anything you want to talk in a forum or in a group setting.
No.
And that's what I've sort of like experienced through some of the work that I've done, especially if it's geared at Black and Asian people around, you know, their career goals, their aspirations. You can't open the forum to let other people that don't look like us or them or the target audience onto the platform. And I've been in a situation where somebody's just rocked up who happens to be senior, who happens to not be Black or Asian, and think that it's okay to sit there and listen to other people speak about, you know, the things that they're going through, the challenges that, you know, pour their heart out. And, you know, I'm really, really keen to sort of like have these safe spaces where people can be themselves, talk about the things that really, you know, resonate with them, that they can share with other people, but also feel that they don't have to pretend that it's not all that bad, but they're just adding a little bit to it. Not saying, you know, bare your soul or anything, but just be your authentic self. If you're going to be on a platform, you know, and it's with like-minded people, you're more inclined to actually feel more comfortable and share your experiences. You know, it's like today's platform, you know. Thank you again, you know, Kwame, Joseph and Henderson, for agreeing to be on this. We've never done it before. Certainly like to do it again, and we'll speak about that at the end, because we've got something else in the mix. But it's a wonderful space and place to actually vocalize. Yeah.
Box, you wish to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say that this has been so amazing. And as soon as this is finished, well, I'm going to be DJing over in East London. I'm going to be driving skin in teeth, like I said, because being on the platform with Joseph and Kwame and what they've shared, having the ability to support what you're doing, man, with Talk Honest, Jackie, and the brilliant gifts that she continues to bring through EI, having Susan and Janet and Angelina, Diane, and everybody else who's in the room, as well as all of those people, because I've been receiving messages from people who are listening in. They're not in our room, but they've been listening in. And one of the things that I feel it was important to kind of share, and I said to you guys already about quotes, because sometimes you can have someone who's already said what you want to say and drop it like that. And the quote says, sometimes you find yourself in the middle of nowhere, and sometimes in the middle of nowhere is where you find yourself. And that's how I feel when it comes to my own personal mental health, because it wasn't anything that I ever thought about before, up until the point of my cousin dying. And it was only that breakdown on the bus that it then came to the fore. And fortunately, although I had to navigate that, it then held me in good stead in managing the well-being with my sister of our parents. So certain things that then kicked off in my head, because emotionally, people that you love, you're thinking, how can I cope? How can I manage? When certain signs started to kind of surface again, and then you feel like you're going into that breakdown space, you're able to bounce back from it quicker because you've been through it already. I'm not saying that's going to be the case every time, but it definitely held me in good stead. So it's about sometimes not feeling afraid as a Black man. I'm saying this not to those who want to support the men, but to the men who might be listening. Don't be afraid to be in that space. You may not understand it, but by being there, it may allow you to understand yourself and then get the support and help that you need. That's it. Sorry.
Thank you so much.
No, it's great.
Jackie, is there anything you wish to add?
No, it's just, I was just so chuffed that we were able to have this conversation.
Yeah.
You know, when we were thinking about the concept, because we did last month, we did the Angry Black Woman, Dispelling the Myth. And then it was like, we need one for the guys.
It's definitely.
Yeah. And it's like Men Cry Too. I know it's a song, you know, I'm going back to my Lovers Rock days, you know. But Men Cry Too.
Rewind, Jackie, rewind.
I'm just being honest, because like
Love it.
that song, Men Cry Too, we all cry at different points, but it's about our emotional health and well-being. us being fit for purpose for whatever task we're going to sort of like take on board. And if it means us having to change our routine, you know, so that we've got that time and space, you know, to be in a place where we can fully be present, then we've got to do it. You know, your emotional health is your wealth. And, you know, look at where we've been. We've been somewhere where we can't go back through that door in 2019. Some of us don't want to, right? And even if we wanted to, that's soldered, it's barred, it's not available. What we've been through with the pandemic, we've had to learn to innovate, create a space where we can still function and do the things that we need to do. And we've picked up things. And then what's happened as well, there's so many things that have been good, bad, and downright disgusting that have happened that have just come to the fore, because that pandemic bubble has actually made things that were sort of in the dark or under the radar, brought it to light. So we are in a space where our emotional health and well-being has been impacted in ways we never imagined it would be. And now we've got this new normal, this hybrid way of working, this, you know, we've still got to get the job done. We've got to realize that what we've been doing before, we can't continue in that vein. You know, we've got to sort of like think about ourselves first. And whenever I do training, I always say, if you've been on an airplane, the first thing they do before they take off, when the steward and stewardesses talk about what they're going to do with health and safety, when they talk about the oxygen mask, they say, put yours on first before you help other people. And it's the same thing.
Yeah.
As you know, we just owe it to ourselves. Don't feel guilty, because, you know, it's good to be selfish and look after yourself, because nobody else is going to do it for you. They're not going to say, come, Jack, let me take you to a hammam. I'd love it, you know, but I'm just going to take myself off for my spa day, you know, just to step off the hamster wheel, off the planet for a while, and then come back and I can face things better. So yeah, it's been wonderful.
Thank you so much, Jackie. I just want to take this opportunity to just receive your final thoughts on today's discussion, things that you may just want to share with our listeners. And Kwame, you are the first person. I just want to share your final thoughts with our listeners today.
Okay, well, I'm in a privileged position actually, because I've been an advocate for this on my book, which My Day with Depression, which is available online. And I've had a lot of discussions and been in a number of forums. And the beautiful thing is that these discussions are now starting to happen on a regular. So I'm really, really glad to see that happening. I really believe that as men, we do hurt, we do have pain, we do, you know what I mean, we do internalize that pain, and having forums like this gives other men permission to talk about what they're going through. So my final thought is that, yes, it's great, it's happening, you know, the discussions are taking place. So that means after the discussions, and like I said, people can take away what they need to take away to help, to heal, because we do need to heal, you know, as a people, and we do need to heal as men in terms of what we face on a regular basis. But so my final thought is, it's great. I'm honored to be a part. I'm humbled, and yeah, let the discussions continue. You know, let the discussions continue.
Can I just ask, because also with regards to your book, could you just give us the title of your book and where that can be accessed? Because that might be official.
There you go.
Thank you so much.
It's right here. My Day with Depression. It's available online. It's available on Amazon and any other, Lulu and Amazon. That people can purchase online. And basically, it gives my experience in terms of what I've been through, the signs, what happened, the impact on other people. I'll put in the chat the link, and the impact on other people, how all the experiences that I had going through it, and how I came out of it in regards to how I healed, you know. And I'm finding that funny enough that the discussion that I've been having, because not many men, Black men in particular, have written about this kind of experience, and I'm finding that my book has caused has been a part of the discussions, and I'm proud of that. So long may it continue, you know. So I'll put the details in the chat where it can be found. Then.
Thank you so much, Joseph. Your final thoughts, please.
Kwame, you've said it all.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Joseph version.
um, my version is that this has been a fantastic platform to begin to open up a space for Black men to be able to show maybe a side of themselves that they don't normally show, and be allowed to show that, and be allowed to be vulnerable. And I just hope that it develops from here. But like I said, Kwame has said it all.
Thank you so much, Joseph. Mr. Henderson, Murray, may I have your final thoughts, please? If you can kindly unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, that would help, wouldn't it? It's because Kwame and Joseph got me so moved, man. I couldn't press the clicker, so I'm going to blame them. No, but my final thoughts are just for people to take away. One, it's not one size fits all, you know. So don't be afraid. This is our platform that we've been blessed to grace, but yours might be on your sofa, across a table, in a car with a friend as you're going on a journey. Whatever it looks like to you, and whatever it may be, you talking to yourself sometimes, because that's where some of the best honesty is. But as long as you realize that you're here and you're valuable, do you know what I mean? Again, that last quote that I'm going to share, you might be one person in the world, but you might be the world to one person. You know what I'm saying? And that's the key thing. Ringing someone, texting them out of the blue just to say, how you doing? Could be a game changer. And I know that if we had another X amount of hours, all of us would be able to share stories where we know a call or a conversation has changed the direction of someone's life, if not our own. So it's been beautiful, man. Love that. So bless up all of you.
Thank you so much. Jackie, may I kindly have your final thoughts?
Okay, my final thoughts. I'm just going to share the screen. Can you all see it? Oops. Is it there? Right, you can see it. Yeah, it's been a wonderful opportunity to weave, you know, emotional intelligence. Let's talk EI. Emotional intelligence is in everything that we do, you know, and some people may recognize it, others may not, but having the conversation where you can be yourself and speak about the things that are challenging you, the things that you need to change, or just things that in general, openly and honestly, without fear of anyone judging you, has been wonderful, you know. And I put the slide up. I do a whole raft of things on emotional intelligence. I'm actually running a certification program, and Fox is on that, and that's next month. Looking forward to that. I hope you
As
are
am
too,
I.
Fox. Yeah,
100%, man. 100.
yeah. Kwame, you've raised your hand. Would you like to?
Yes, because you haven't shared the fact that I helped you to write your book.
No, I haven't, but I'm coming to that.
Okay, all right.
Why the man jump in and first? Maybe you see me at the chat
In your
for now.
final-
Yeah, no. No, my final thoughts are it's thank you, because each and every one of these gentlemen as panelists, I've had interaction with them. So Fox, as he's mentioned, I met him when I came to Talks Honest to be Miss Law's guest for that day, and then we got chatting. Kwame actually helped me to write my book. So when we talk about the outpouring, that was it. My book is called Journey to Empowerment, Tackling the Bullies Within. So I'm a bullying and harassment consultant as well. And I do a lot of coaching around that. And when you think about your career journey, as I have, you know, you've got your luggage and you're walking around with it. I needed to unpack it. And Kwame was the person that I met. I actually met him at somebody else's book launch, and we just got talking. He didn't have a business card, but we connected. And, you know, he's been the person that helped me bring it from concept to fruition, you know, and I'm grateful for that. Is that all right, Kwame? Me big you up enough? Yeah.
Good, but that's good. That's good.
And Joseph, Joseph has been on my journey to empowerment in terms of Black History Studies. We were part of the same Black History Studies cohort, and we've got like a subgroup that we meet, you know, ever so often. And after we did the Angry Black Woman, and we spoke about, you know, having a platform for the men, I thought, right, okay, I'm going to ask Joseph. So that's how I know these three gentlemen, and I'm so grateful, because the conversation needs to continue, and we need to do more of these things. And, you know, as I said, take a screenshot of this. If anybody's interested in, you know, what I'm doing with emotional intelligence, you can either email me. There's a website there, Wilson Hines Consulting, but there's also the Society of Emotional Intelligence International, where I do the conferences and certification program. And all of this can be accessed via the iLive UK web page. The URL is at the bottom. Can we tell them that there's going to be a sort of like join up?
So I'm taking it that's your final thoughts.
That's my final thoughts. You know, we've got to come back together.
Okay. So in conclusion to today's show, it's very important that you understand that we are surrounded by people, both male and female, that are going through things. Some are more suppressed than others. Some are struggling on a day-to-day basis. They don't have an opportunity to conversate or don't feel confident in conversating. So it's our duty and our responsibility to be there whenever they may need us. Be that voice of encouragement, that voice of support, that voice that when they're going through whatever they're going through, you spring to mind. They feel like, I need to call this person. I need to reach out. It's important that you understand your role with your Black brothers, nephews, fathers, uncles. We can go on. Understand their journey. Understand their obstructions, their obstacles along their way. I'm pleased to announce that the next episode will be the brothers and the sisters coming together as one. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for listening to today's show. Good night and God bless.
What if we spoke honestly? What if we spoke honestly? What if we spoke